we supposed it made sense. Mark always had an aversion to using diapers. I can still remember the day we came back from the hospital and my husband was trying to change Mark's diaper. Babe, my husband called warily. I hummed him, preoccupied with setting up the baby clothes. He hasn't gone, Julian stated confusedly. I turned his direction. What? Surely he didn't mean what I thought. What do you mean he hasn't gone? He's dry. I was a bit worried about this, so I called the doctor who delivered Mark and asked for help. He told me that perhaps the baby was just dehydrated and that I should feed him more often until he could set up a time to see Mark tomorrow. I felt awful hanging up the phone without proper reassurance that Mark would be fine, but I suppose the doctor was right and it was about time to feed the baby anyway. I took the doctor's advice and gave him a bottle right there and then. He fussed at first, not wanting to take the bottle's nipple, but eventually started suckling after realising that I wasn't going to let up. Mark fell asleep while drinking, and when we woke up, his diaper, much to his chagrin, was wet, and it was weird. He almost looked annoyed that we had to change him too. We soon picked up on the pattern that Mark would hold on to his urine for as long as he could imagine, and then wet his diaper while napping. It was odd, but the doctor said he was physically fine otherwise, so we just accepted it. And life went on for me, my husband, and our quiet baby boy. It was at Mark's first birthday when we noticed his application to fire. We had put one small candle on his cupcake, and after lighting it, Mark covered his eyes. He didn't cry. No, Mark never cried, but instead he covered his eyes and started shaking his head, repeating no over and over. Julian and I exchanged a look of concern before blowing out Mark's candle and going to him. It's all right, baby, it's gone, I assured. Mark slowly lifted his hand from his eye and looked up at us. His eyes were glossy, like there may have been tears present, but none fell. We scooped him up and hugged him. No more candles, okay? He squeezed me back and I took it as an okay. And everything else that day went fine. He happily opened his gifts, a small boy rabbit, a Lego set, smiling and thanking us in his tiny lisp-cased voice. His speech was remarkable well for his age. Well, everything about Mark was remarkable, really. All of our friends were jealous when they started having babies. Oh, my Molly keeps me up all night with the crying, my friend Liz said, and she seemed irritated when I told her I couldn't relate. Really, Mark sleeps through the night and hardly ever cries, which was true. He never had an issue sleeping, but he did toss and turn, like he had been having some type of wild dreams. Yet, needless to say that we lost a few friends down the line. You'd never think it, but mummies are the most cold-hearted bitches when it comes to anyone but their own kids. But we got new friends as Mark got older. Around age 2, when he was big enough to run around with other kids, we'd taken him to the playground. There we met Stacey and her daughter Kayla. They were the same age, but Mark seemed disinterested in playing with her. Kayla tugged his shirt, begging him to build a sandcastle with her, but he just stared to me with a bored expression. I called over and tried to reason with him. Just go and play with her, even if you find it boring, okay? He sighed and went off to build a castle. By now, I pretty much knew what Mark was. He was an old soul, a kid who thought he was too grown up and very much lacked interest in things kids his age would normally like. A few months of getting to know Stacey, she invited me, Julian and Mark to eat at a restaurant her and her husband owned. We happily agreed and got dressed in our best outfits. Mark even had an adorable little bow tie, which he actually said he liked. But what we didn't know was that the restaurant was one of those kinds where they cook the food in front of you. By now, trousers with a blanket until we got home. He sat in the car seat with his thumb in his mouth and tears lacing his cheeks, both of those things he'd never done. Up until tonight, I thought Mark would rather eat a bug than cry or suck his thumb. When we got home, I drew Mark a bath. He was still giving little sniffles and whimpers while he bathed. I felt awful, wanting nothing more than to help my little baby boy feel better. Julian and I laid with Mark in our bed after the bath, rubbing his back. I exchanged a look with Julian and he knew what to do next. In the car, we had a quiet conversation about talking to Mark about his fear of the fire. Julian was questionable at first. He's a baby, he said. How's he going to know why he's afraid of such a silly little thing? I scoffed. Do you really think Mark, of all kids, isn't going to know something? And Julian quieted at the question. Mark knew seemingly everything. He answered questions that even most adults would have to Google. Despite being so young, he was so wise, way beyond his years. Mark, buddy, I asked as Julian continued to rub his back. He didn't make a sound or even move, but I continued anyway. Why does the fire scare you so bad? Mark stopped breathing. His whole little body stiffened and he looked at me with fear in his eyes. Don't make me tell you, he said in a small voice. Hey, Julian comforted. It's okay, we won't be angry or anything. Mark looked to him and back to me. Really? He asked, tears now falling down his face. Really, I confirmed. There's nothing you can say that ever will make Mummy and Daddy angry, okay? Mark looked assured. Still tense. He took a breath, probably for confidence, and shakily told us about his story. I was here before. He sounded like he was trying to find the right way to say that sentence, but that's the best he could. What do you mean? I asked. He sighed in frustration. It's hard. Calm down, Julian said softly. It's okay, take your time. Mark sat quietly for a few moments. You could see the gears in his mind turning, trying to find the words to explain what he was thinking. Finally, he spoke. I was here before. I lived before, a long time ago. I think my soul left my body. I mean, what do you say to that? When I was a kid, older than now, my mummy burned me. She threw gasoline on me and lit a match. It hurt, Mummy. It hurt so bad. My skin boiled and fell on the floor. And Mark's words broke off into deep, terrified sobs. It's okay, baby, it's okay. I hugged him tightly. He kept going. I burned for hours, and back then, Mummy laughed. She laughed while I screamed. I stayed there screaming until I stopped. He became less frantic now and continued to hold me tightly. Julian and I exchanged wild expressions. We were dumbfounded by what Mark had just described. I mean, Jesus, what kind of 2-year-old thinks of that? Surely it must be true. We'd never let him watch any kind of movie or show with any type of graphic, disturbing violence such as that. We all sat in stunned silence until Mark passed out in my arms. All the trauma from reliving his memory must have tired him. Julian and I tried to rationalise what we'd just been told, but we just couldn't. And even now, 10 years after the fact, we still don't know if Mark's story was just that or if it was real. He's 12 now and doesn't remember what he'd once told us, but even after all those years, he's still afraid of fire. Number 3. I was 14 when I had my first child. My dad was an alcoholic and an abuser. My mum was a recovering coke addict living somewhere else, playing house with her new husband and my half-brothers. I barely even remember her face. I remember my dad, or more accurately, I remember the shadow of my dad. He had a huge bulging dark shadow stumbling through the tight corridors of our house, drunk and debilitated, crawling into my childhood bed and ignoring my tears and screams. Stumbling back out, picking up a beer that he had placed on my nightstand, burping loudly. He'd be passed out either on the floor or the couch, or occasionally his bed when I woke up. I'd make him breakfast in the kitchen that smelled foul of cat shit and spilled booze, and he would maybe be sober when I went to school, but never when I returned. Most nights he didn't touch me, but sometimes he did. The routine of caring of him was exhausting. My mind felt empty, most of the time. Mechanical almost. I felt like a car on the verge of breaking down, just focusing on staying on the road, whatever the cost. I didn't notice I was smoking at the time as well. I've always regretted that. I can't stand smoking now. The dark smell and heavy feeling, it all makes me sick to my stomach. I gave birth to a boy one night. My dad was out in excruciating pain on the floor of our kitchen with my cat by my side. I'd assisted her in delivering litters before, so I liked to think that she'd help me as well. I suppose my boy was premature, because he was very small in comparison to the children I've had since then, but I don't know for sure. He looked like my dad. I looked at his little bloodied face, the way he was crying, the way his scrunched up features looked monstrous, the way his eyes looked like my dad's, and I decided I cared as much about this boy as I did his dad. He was as much a mistake in my eyes as I was, and I thought about all the times I had prayed to God that he'd kill me before I had the chance to wake up. I made it quick, strangled him with a shoelace, hid him in the closet for a few days, until the smell became too strong. Then I threw him in the lake on the way to school. I hid him in my backpack, and the rot held on the fabric for weeks. I wasn't really worried about anyone finding him. Nobody looks for someone who isn't missing. I suppose I should have been guilty, and I am now, but back then I truly felt nothing. I was droning through life. I got into therapy when I was in high school. I inherited money from my piece of a shit grandmother, and I spent it on this instead of college. It was without a doubt the best decision I've ever made. I'm a social worker now, and I take care of people. I have a husband and 2 beautiful girls. We're happy, we're quiet. I'm not supremely well educated, and I'm not the best at apologising for my mistakes, but I live. I sleep with a nightlight on, but I don't flinch from my husband's shadow. He knows the gist about my childhood. The alcohol, the yelling, the stench of shit on me every day. He doesn't know about my boy. It never felt like a burden I was meant to share. I carried him until I didn't, and then I killed him. It was a story that started and ended with me. But a few days after my boy died, I started hearing him. First, it would be his cries, and I was falling asleep. That shrill, demented cry he had managed to screech when he was born, but twisted in accordance with his mangled vocals from a shoelace tied around his tiny neck, like a bow tie. After a few weeks, I started seeing him. Once again, it was only when I was falling asleep, for the last few minutes before the dark takes over, and he would be lying on the floor, helpless, blue, and gasping for air, and crying his little lungs empty. It continued like that. It still does. When I wake up in sleep paralysis, he's still there, lying on my floor, blue and increasingly rotten, begging for the death I handed him. But when I wake up for real, there's nothing, of course. He's grown up in front of me. The child who used to be a baby is a man now. He'd be 32 this year, and the boy I see does indeed look 32. His face is sunken and blue, and he is still just lying on the floor, shitting and screaming, and his naked body is frightfully skinny. Sometimes, in my paralysis, he'll try to reach out to touch me, but he can't stand, and I can't move. I wish I could. I wish I could collect him in my arms and rock him to sleep. This man who is my boy, and I wish I could apologise and explain, but I am where I am, and he is where he is. Except for a night a few weeks ago, he got up, he stood, not straight, and definitely not surely, but he stood. He stretched his bony hand out to me, and I was so afraid he'd strike me or choke me or hurt me, might even kill me. I wouldn't blame him. He didn't, obviously. He stroked my cheek, fairly roughly but not maliciously, and he smiled. His teeth were black and his smile was unpleasant, but the surge I felt in my stomach was almost happiness. Could you believe it? My boy was smiling. My throat just crackled. I got the call in the morning. My dad had been found dead, choked on his own vomit in the same disgusting apartment I grew up in. They're gonna need a hazmat team to clean it all up. I felt nothing at the news except maybe relief, but even that would be too extreme of a descriptor. My husband and I danced in the kitchen in celebration. My boy didn't show up that night. He hasn't since. I have all faith that he killed our father, that he made him choke on himself, on all the sick he brought into the world, on his own disgusting stomach acid, burning its way through his shell of a body. My boy doesn't show up anymore, and in a way that makes me sad, as stupid as that might sound, to miss a spectre of your own guilt. In a way, that makes me sad, and as stupid as that This time, when I put my address into the GPS, I noticed that there was a slightly faster route that wound back and forth while staying in the mountains. After talking it over with Rachel, we decided to follow the new path. The moon was full. The car had plenty of fuel. The beginning of the drive passed without incident. I knew most of the roads near my parents, and the full moon washed everything out with a pale, colourless light that made following the signs easy. The road took us deep into the mountains, and soon the winding path was rough and bumpy from lack of use. We'd been driving for around half an hour when Rachel turned on the radio. Everything was static. "Well, we are in the mountains," I said. "Reception is going to be rough out here." Rachel didn't answer, instead continuing to turn the knob in search of a new station. She stopped the dial when she heard a voice. At first I thought it was one of those Christian radio stations that play in the country, you know, the kind that have audio sermons constantly playing. But as I listened, I realised it was something more like a public service announcement. The voice on the radio had a noticeable lisp. "I repeat, all cars driving on Pikes Lane, there is a serious rock slide blocking the road near Atlas Junction. We recommend that all drivers take Manitou Drive as a detour." I looked down at my GPS, saw that we were driving on Pikes Lane, then scrolled along the road until I found a road called Manitou Drive. I said. "Should we just turn around?" Rachel asked. We'd already been driving for half an hour. It'd mean adding an hour till we got home. I tapped the screen to add the turn on my GPS. Let's see how long the detour. It turned right into Manitou Drive. It wound back and forth down into a valley. After another 10 minutes or so, we arrived in a small town. There didn't appear to be any other exit outside of the lone road that had carried us there. The only light within 100 feet came from a rundown gas station. My phone didn't have any service, so I pulled into a parking space and walked inside, hoping to get directions to the rest of the detour. The man behind the counter was in his late 50s and smelled horrible. Not just the smell of body odour, but of something worse, like he'd been working with rotting animals for a few minutes back. "Hey," I said. We were driving and got detoured through this town. "Is there a way south through here? We're trying to get to Colorado Springs." An excited smile spread across the man's face. "Oh yeah," he said, "just keep driving through town." His voice was somehow familiar, but I was too distracted by the smell to give it too much thought. I thanked him for the information, returned to my car and set off down the road with Rachel. "Friends," the radio crackled. "It is time we gather at the square." I looked up at Rachel. She was staring at the radio with a concerned expression. Was that the same guy that announced the rock slide? Sounded like it. I continued driving through town, following the path he'd laid out. It came to a dead end at a bunch of trailers. I tried to check the map on my phone, but I still had no service. "Well," I said, "I guess we have to go back." We were driving back along the winding roads through town when my headlights illuminated something blocking the road. I pulled my car to a stop, staring out at what was clearly a tied-up woman laying on the ground. I said. "Hey," Rachel said, drive fast." I turned to follow her eyes. No less than 40 dark figures emerged from behind her, the run-down buildings surrounding us. They were holding candles and they were running towards our car. I slammed my foot down on the gas, narrowly avoiding the woman tied up, and sped off down the road. The radio crackled to life again. "Come back, join our celebration." I realised where I recognised it. It was the same man in the gas station, the same man who'd announced the rock slide and pulled us into the town. I didn't stop driving until I reached my parents' place. I looked up some news articles and found several that mentioned drivers going missing near the